Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be showing you a pure sine wave inverter from Ampeak. It's right here. It's 1200 watts. I'm going to go ahead and open it up and let's see what we got. Okay, and here is all what came in the box. You get your Ampeak inverter manual. You get the Ampeak 1200 watt pure sine wave inverter. And it does come with a couple of cables to connect to the inverter, to your battery, and they are rated at, and all the cable says that it is 450 to 750 volts, and it is a 16 millimeter squared cable. So I'll put the wire gauge down here because I don't know what that is right now. But in my eyeballs, it looks like it's about a 6 gauge, but I'll confirm that. And I feel like a 6 gauge wire is way underrated for 1200 watts. Because you got to think 1200 watts is like right around 100 amps for a 12 volt system. And I don't think these are made for 100 amps. I'm guessing that they're probably made for around 50 amps. But we're going to use them anyway, just because that's what came with the inverter. What the inverter has is it has a couple of I guess these are the studs that they go on, and they're labeled negative and positive right here. It has a couple of cooling fans. On the front, it just has probably like an LCD screen. And then it also says input DC 11 volts to 15 volts. Output is AC 105 volts to 125 volts at 60 hertz. And then there's also a couple of USB ports, and they are rated at 5 volts at 2.4 amps. On this side, you have your 3 outlets. It looks like they're 15 amp outlets. There's an off-on switch. There is a plug for a optional remote control if you wanted to get that. And then here is your USB ports. Nothing on that side, nothing on that side. And on the bottom, it just says a bunch of warnings about how not to use it. So I'm going to test this, but I'm more excited about setting up something that is very portable using this. So let's go ahead and do that now. For something that's really portable, I'm going to use my Ampeak. And what I'm going to put it in is an egg crate because it fits in an egg crate perfectly. But I feel like this 1200 watt inverter, it would be a perfect size for a 100 amp battery. That's something, something that can discharge at 100 amps. So I am going to use the Redodo 100 amp mini, because this 100 amp mini can also fit in an egg crate. So let's go ahead and get those up here. And let's go ahead and grab my egg crate right here. Okay, this is your standard egg crate. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and try to figure out a way to put everything in here, because you can see that the Redodo fits in there just fine, and so does the Ampeak. So you can literally put them in like that if we can find a way to wire it up. But we don't have very good access to the AC ports, so we might want to maybe set the battery like that, because that's what's nice about lithium iron phosphate batteries. You can set them however you want. I mean, I don't know if you can set them upside down, but you can set them on their side with no problem at all. And I could just set the Ampeak inverter right on top of the battery, but I haven't even used this Ampeak yet, so I don't know if it's going to get real hot. I don't want it to get hot and cause a hot spot right on top of the battery. So I have some PVC here. I could angle it that way and then maybe put it on top like that. That way I have use of the ports. I'm not really sure. Could set a second one in there. That way it actually sits up straight. So, maybe something like that with the battery and then like a little bit of airflow and the inverter on top. And now I have access to the AC ports via this handle right here. You can see right here. And then also the wiring of the battery I might actually be able to actually wire it up also. So let's just go ahead and try to wire this up and see what it does. And also another thing I like about these cables that came with it is they come with these rubber covers. They're not plastic, they're actually rubber. So they're made specifically for these cables. So you can't like use a bigger cable, because I don't know if you'd be able to fit this on a bigger cable or not. But they also they're made for these types of connections on the inverter. Oh, and I forgot, this inverter actually came with its own wrench, which is a 10 millimeter wrench. So kudos to Ampeak for giving you a wrench. All right, so both of our cables are on there. Now let's see what we can do with this battery. Let's go ahead and just connect them on. We're not going to be using these screws and nuts that came with it, because we're going to be using hopefully the 8 millimeters that came with the battery. Yep, and they do fit 8 millimeters, so that's good. Let's go ahead and plug that in. Let's go ahead and tighten this down. Okay, and then let's make sure our inverter's turned off. It is. It's a 1200 watt inverter, so I'm not going to worry about using a resistor to pre-charge any capacitors in there, because I don't think the spark is going to be that big. But if it is big, you'll see it. Here we go. Nope. There was no spark at all, which is kind of nice. Okay, that's nice and tight. Let's go ahead and just set this battery on its side, like that. Here, let's make sure you can see right in there. Okay, so the battery's set on its side. Let's just set these right here. That looks fine, I guess. Let's go ahead and move. And can we just set the inverter kind of like this? Yeah, there we go. Look at that. The wires are kind of sticking out of its handle a little bit, but there we go. And you can see that we have access to our AC plugs right here. And let's turn on this inverter and see what happens. All right, inverter turned on. It shows an input voltage of 12.9 volts at 75 degrees Fahrenheit. It shows 5 watts. So I don't know, that might be the usage of the inverter itself right now. So 5 watts. The output, it shows 0.2 volts at 28.5 amps at 60 hertz. Yeah, if you multiply those together, that's like what 6 or 7 watts. So, but it's on. Yeah, let's go ahead and plug something in, see if it'll power something. Okay, and and actually to test this thing, I found the perfect item. And I don't know if it's going to power it because it's pretty big. But the reason I would want to do this, and the reason I figured that anybody else would want to, usually you don't carry around a battery and an inverter. But if you don't want to buy like a portable power station, you could easily do this. I'm not sure what the price of all this will be. I can put it down here at the bottom, kind of let you know what this would cost. But let's just say I went outside because I have some tree limbs that I want to cut, and the extension cord will not run all the way to my house. So what I'm going to use is I have a DeWalt SawsAll right here. And this thing is 120 volts at 10 amps. So that is 1200 watts right there. And I don't know if that's startup power. I mean, this thing may not like it very much, but I think it's the perfect thing because I would love to be able to use this, you know, industrial strength SawsAll to cut down limbs. And, you know, just in case I can't get an extension cord all the way out there, I could just take this out and be ready to go. So let's go ahead and plug it in and try it out. Go ahead and plug it in. All right. Here goes nothing. Okay, I saw it actually pushing 1200 watts. I thought I saw 1300 watts. I'm gonna do it really fast and I'm gonna see if I can capture some sort of maximum wattage. Oh, right there. It did not like that at all. So you kind of have to start this thing slow. And then it will ramp up. Because if I started it slow and then I pressed it down all the way, it can handle that surge. And I did see 1343 watts on the screen. But if you try to light it up right off the bat, it's not gonna like it. But it just beeps and then it just goes back to what it was. So you can immediately start it right back up again. And what's also great about this is that, you know, it probably only weighs about, I mean, it weighs less than 25 pounds, I know that. And just think if you were using like a lead acid battery, getting a 100 amp lead acid battery, and then an inverter on top of that, I mean, you'd be lugging around 70 something pounds. So this is a much lighter option. Those cables aren't hot at all. I wasn't expecting them to be because I didn't really use that SawsAll for very long. But again, those cables are a bit underrated. So if you do get this Ampeak, I would maybe upgrade those cabling to, I mean, I would probably say at least a 4-gauge cable, if not a 2-gauge cable. And a little extra bonus about this is that you could be using a SawsAll and you could charge your phone at the same time. There we go. All right, and then I know, you know, somebody will probably think, well, okay, that's all fine and dandy, but what about charging this thing? I mean, the Ampeak is the inverter, so it's going to supply the AC power, but what about if I wanted to charge that battery? I mean, do I need to like take that battery out? Do I need to disassemble this whole thing? No, not really. I mean, what you could do is you could actually just buy a Drock power supply. I mean, this one's a variable power supply, so it varies, the voltage varies on it, and the amperage varies, but it's an 8 amp charger. So I could just set this to, you know, 14 volts, which would be just fine for a lithium iron phosphate battery. Crank up that amperage to 8 amps, and I could just set this thing back here. And there you go. I have my AC cord right here for plugging into the wall. And then I have my DC. All I gotta do is put a couple of ring terminals on here, clamp them onto that battery that's down there, and then I have a charging source as well. So this is a complete system. I mean, if you wanted to have solar on there as well, I mean, you could just use a small Bouge RV solar charge controller. I mean, these things are really small. You could go ahead and just put that. You know, you could just put that right there. I mean, all of this stuff is pretty small, so it's not going to charge this battery up in 30 minutes or anything like that. But you could use solar power. You could use AC power to charge it. And then you have 100 amps and you have 1200 watts of AC power to go around to whatever you need. So, and you also have your USB ports, so you could charge your, you know, your small USB devices. For something I just slapped together in like, what, 5 or 6 minutes, this is a full solar power station now. And it's all because of the size of everything. The size of the Ampeak 1200 watt inverter, the size of the 100 amp mini battery, and the variable power supply, and the size of that solar charge controller. All you need is a portable solar panel, and I mean, you could take this, you could just throw this in the back of your car and you could take it anywhere. Okay, so if you have any questions about the Ampeak 1200 watt pure sine wave inverter, please just go ahead and leave them down in the comment section. I'll go ahead and post a link in the description so you can click on that to read more about it. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. You all have a great day. Bye-bye.